Dr. Ashley Nicole is a passionate doctor in a hospital in New York. One day, she meets her newest patients, Kim Lee and Rajan, Korean twins. These twins in their early 30s see the older black and sexy doctor in her late 40s, and they are hooked. Suddenly, all their illnesses disappear and they begin to fight for her love. They are obsessed, competing with each other, and even offering her tempting gifts. Does Dr. Ashley get to choose one twin and stay with him forever? Or does she get to play two brothers? Or does she make two brothers enemies for life? Keep watching to find it and hit the subscribe button. The page in her hand was infuriatingly bare. And this is all. Dr. Ashley Nicole's voice, a low alto that commanded the sterile hallway, was edged with blade-sharp professionalism. The junior resident, Dr. Patel, flinched. Their personal representative provided it, insisted on discretion. The symptoms were severe enough to admit, but the details. Ashley's eyes scanned the sparse lines again. Lee Rajan, Lee Kim, twin males age 32, presenting symptoms, simultaneous onset of severe cephalgia, vertigo, photophobia. No past medical history, no listed medications, no known allergies, just two names, two identical sets of symptoms, and a room number in the private wing that cost more per night than most people's mortgages. A mystery, she murmured, more to herself, or a power play. The board requested you specifically, Dr. Nicole. Of course they did, Ashley said, starting down the hall, her white coat flaring behind her. When the hospital's wealthy patrons presented with problems that could scare investors, they called her. She was the fixer. At 47, with a reputation built on a spine of titanium and a mind like a laser scalpel, she was the calm in every storm. Her personal life, a serene, celibate expanse of books, her garden, and cherished silence, was the fortress that made it all possible. She paused outside Suite A, taking a deliberate breath. Her reflection in the glass panel of the door was a portrait of controlled power, dark brown skin smooth, the striking golden streaks in her full afro catching the fluorescent light, her expression unreadable. She pushed the door open. The room was less a hospital suite and more a minimalist penthouse. And there, in two beds by the window, were the sources of the mystery. Ashley Nicole had seen beautiful people before. This was something else. They were identical, yet the energy that rolled off them was opposites. Both possessed the striking, ambiguous beauty of Wajans, high cheekbones, dark eyes that held a trace of a smolder, hair styled with an artful care that spoke of expensive barbers. But one, in the bed nearest the door, had a smile already playing on his lips. The other, by the window, was a study in stillness, his gaze a physical weight. "Gentlemen," she said, her clipboard held like a shield. "I'm Dr. Nicole, head of neurosurgery. I understand you're sharing more than just genetics today, severe headaches and vertigo." The one by the door, Rajan, according to the chart, spoke first. His voice was polished, warm honey over gravel. "Doctor, the rumors of your expertise didn't do you justice. The headache is here," he said, gesturing to his temple, "but the real pain was not seeing you sooner." A textbook opening, charming, disarming, utterly transparent. Ashley didn't blink. "I'll need to assess that neurological function, Mr. Lee. Humor is controlled by the frontal lobe. Damage there can cause inappropriate affect. We should test it." A low, almost inaudible sound came from the other bed. Not a laugh, but an exhale of appreciation. Rajan's smile widened, undeterred. "Ah, a direct hit. I am thoroughly assessed and found wanting. My brother, Kim, is the strong, silent type. His headache, I assume, is from the strain of not speaking." Ashley turned her attention to Kim. His eyes were already on her, had been since she entered. They tracked the graceful line of her neck, the confident set of her shoulders, the way her hands held the chart. There was no smile, only a profound, unsettling focus. "Mr. Lee," she addressed him, "can you describe your vertigo? Does the room spin, or do you feel pulled in a specific direction?" He waited a beat, letting her question hang in the quiet. "It's not the room that spins, doctor," he said, his voice quieter than his brother, but deeper, thrumming with a vibration that she felt in her ribs. "It's the axis. The point of balance is displaced." The answer was so strange, so philosophical, it bypassed her clinical checklist and went straight to her intuition. Something was profoundly off. These men were not sick in any conventional way. "I see," she said, her tone neutral. "I need to perform a physical exam. I'll start with you, Rajan." As she approached his bed, the air changed. It became charged, thick with a scent of sandalwood and something dangerous, like ozone after a lightning strike. She felt their combined gaze on her as she pulled out her penlight. "Follow the light, please." She moved it left, right, up, down. His eyes followed perfectly, but they didn't stay on the light. They kept flicking back to her face, to her mouth, to the pulse point at her throat. "Your pupils are reactive," she stated. "Only to the right stimuli," he replied softly. Ignoring him, she moved to check his peripheral vision, her hands coming up to frame his face. Her fingers brushed against the crisp strands of his hair. He was preternaturally still, a predator playing docile. Up close, he was even more devastatingly handsome, and she hated that she noticed. "Tell me when you see my fingers moving." She wiggled her index fingers at the edges of his vision. "I see them, but I'd rather watch you." She dropped her hands and stepped back, a flush of irritation, or something else warming her neck. Cognitive function appears intact, excessively so. She turned to Kim. "Your turn." Moving to his bedside was like walking into a different atmosphere. Where Rajan radiated a performative heat, Kim was a banked furnace. He didn't speak as she repeated the exam. He simply obeyed, his dark eyes locked on hers with an intensity that felt like a touch. When she cupped his jaw to check his cranial nerves, his skin was warm. A muscle feathered in his cheek. Her thumb was near the corner of his lips. The silence between them was deafening, a taut wire humming with unsound. "Open your mouth, say ah." He complied, his gaze never leaving hers. It felt intimate wrong. She finished quickly, retreating to the foot of the bed, putting space between them. "The exams are neurologically normal," she announced, her voice thankfully steady. "Which makes your simultaneous symptoms even more concerning. I'm ordering a full battery of tests. MRI, MRA, spinal tap if necessary. We need to find the root cause." "Perhaps the cause isn't in our heads, doctor," Rajan said from across the room. Kim shifted in his bed, his sheets whispering. "Perhaps it just walked in." The words landed in the center of the room, a gauntlet thrown not at her, but about her. A strange, electric tension coiled in Ashley's stomach, a sensation entirely separate from medical curiosity. This was not a doctor-patient dynamic. This was the first move in a game she hadn't agreed to play. She made a final, precise note on her chart, the sound of the pen unnaturally loud. "Rest. The nurse will be in to schedule your scans. Try to avoid any strenuous mental activity." She turned and left, the door closing with a soft click behind her. Only in the empty, bright hallway did she let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. The ghost of sandalwood and ozone clung to her coat. The memory of two pairs of dark, intelligent eyes, one full of clever fire, the other of smoldering coal, followed her. They were hiding something far more significant than a headache. And for the first time in her meticulously ordered career, Dr. Ashley Nicole felt a flicker of something she couldn't diagnose. The unsettling thrill of being prey who had just been sighted by two very handsome, very dangerous hunters. "Darling, this is excellent tea. Truly, what is it?" Nurse Brenda, a woman in her 50s with a no-nonsense demeanor, barely glanced up from adjusting Kim's IV. "It's the hospital brand, sir. Earl Grey." "It tastes like salvation," Rajan sighed, taking a slow sip from the porcelain cup. He was propped up in his bed, the picture of convalescing charm. Kim, by the window, watched the exchange silently, a chess master observing his brother's opening move. "I must know where you got it, for my personal collection." "The pantry on the 3rd floor," Brenda said flatly. "Ah, but it's prepared with such care. It has a floral note. Is there lavender? No, bergamot, of course, but there's a warmth to it." He set the cup down with a soft click. "Tell me, does our formidable Dr. Nicole prefer this particular blend during her long nights? She seems like a woman who appreciates a perfect cup." Brenda's eyes flickered to him. "I couldn't say, Mr. Lee." Of course, of course. Patient confidentiality works both ways, doesn't it? Rajan's smile was disarming. He reached for the sleek wallet on his bedside table, not breaking eye contact. It's just my brother and I feel like such a burden. We want to thank her properly. Perhaps with something she truly enjoys, a small gesture. He extracted a crisp $1,000 bill, placing it gently on the bedside tray next to the tea. For your impeccable service and your discretion. Brenda stared at the money. The room was silent except for the hum of the air conditioner. Kim watched a war play out on her face, protocol versus pragmatism. She doesn't drink that, Brenda said finally, her voice lower. She didn't touch the bill, but she didn't look away from it either. She brings her own, a loose-leaf rooibos, with vanilla, from some specialty place online. She says caffeine after 4 p.m. disrupts her sleep cycle. Rajan's eyes lit up. A woman of discipline and taste. I admire that, and her work neuropathic pain. Fascinating, lonely work. To sit with another's suffering like that, it must take a toll. She's publishing a paper on it, Brenda murmured, almost to herself. Spends hours in her office after shifts. She has this old book she's always referencing, can never find a proper copy, she says. Some Principles of Neurological Alchemy, something like that. First edition, she jokes, is in the Smithsonian. Fascinating, Rajan breathed, his gaze sliding to meet Kim's. The silent twin gave an almost imperceptible nod. Thank you, Brenda. You've been extraordinarily helpful. The nurse finally picked up the bill, folding it swiftly into her palm. I was never here. Who? Rajan smiled. When she left, Kim spoke, his voice a low rumble in the sunlit room. Rooibos, vanilla, a book. He listed the assets like a general receiving intelligence. Operation Ashley is a go, Rajan said, picking up his phone. His thumbs flew over the screen. The heart is won through the mind first, brother. We speak her language. The rare text will arrive by tomorrow. An anonymous donation to the department. Kim said nothing, turning to look out the window at the cityscape. His approach would require no phone calls, no money. It would require patience and the cover of night. You are here at 2:17 a.m. Ashley jerked, her pen skidding across a chart. The nurse's station was an island of light in the dark, quiet hallway. Kim Lee stood just outside its halo, dressed not in a hospital gown but in dark linen pajamas. He moved like smoke. You should be in bed, Mr. Lee, she said, her voice sharp to cover her startlement. Kim, he corrected softly. He didn't move closer. I could not sleep. I saw the light. Your neurological observations seem fine. I'm working. On the chart for the elderly man in 412, the one with the glioblastoma. He took one slow step into the light. His eyes were black pools absorbing her. You wrote 3 different dosage options. You are weighing his quality of life against aggressive intervention. A chill that had nothing to do with the air conditioning touched her spine. That is confidential. It is a weight, he continued, as if she hadn't spoken. His gravelly voice was a physical thing in the quiet. The weight of these decisions, you carry it, every day, in your shoulders. His gaze drifted to the slope of her neck, then back to her eyes. They see the white coat, the title. They do not see the woman who bears the cost of that title. Ashley stood, her chair scraping. Mr. Lee, this is inappropriate. Is it? He tilted his head. I am only acknowledging what is true. You have built a fortress of competence, doctor. The walls are high. I wonder what you keep inside, or what you keep out. His words were a key sliding into a lock she'd forgotten existed. It wasn't flattery. It was recognition, a terrifying, intimate archaeology of her soul. My personal life is not a subject for discussion, she said, but the words lacked their usual force. Of course not, he murmured. He finally took another step, now at the very edge of the station's counter. She could smell the clean, antiseptic scent of him, undercut with that same sandalwood. Forgive me, I am not good with charm like my brother. I only see what is in front of me. And tonight I see a brilliant doctor alone with her thoughts and the suffering of others. It is a profound solitude. Ashley's heart was a frantic drum against her ribs. He wasn't trying to disarm her with wit or gifts. He was dismantling her, brick by logical brick, with nothing but stark, unbearable sight. "You don't know me," she whispered. "I am beginning to," he said, "and it is the most compelling thing I have encountered in a very long time. Good night, Doctor." He said the title like a vow, like a precious, fragile thing. Then he turned and melted back into the darkness of the hallway, silent as a shadow. Ashley stood frozen, her hand pressed flat against the cool laminate of the desk. The echo of his voice, "Doctor," hung in the air. Rajan's impending gift now felt like a glittering trap. But this felt like an invasion. He hadn't offered her a thing except the terrifying sensation of being utterly seen. The next morning, a small, weighty package wrapped in plain brown paper was on her office desk. Inside, smelling of old leather and history, was a pristine first edition of the Alchemical Principles of Neural Pathways. A note, unsigned, read, "For the mind that seeks the source." She closed the book, her fingers trembling. She touched the intercom. "Nancy, clear my schedule for the next hour. And going forward, all non-essential contact with the Lee twins in Suite A is to be handled by senior residents only. Direct all gifts or communications to the hospital administrator." She sat in her expensive chair, in her powerful office, and felt the walls of her fortress tremble. Not from an assault, but from a single, quiet voice in the dark that had spoken the truth of her loneliness. The battle lines were drawn. One brother fought with gold and rare treasures. The other fought with the devastating artillery of truth. And Ashley, for the first time, felt the ground beneath her feet shift dangerously. "The results are all clear." Ashley stood between the twins' beds, the MRI scans held out like evidence. Her voice was cool, clinical, a scalpel slicing through pretense. "No tumors, no vascular abnormalities, no signs of infection or inflammation. Your brains, gentlemen, are structurally pristine." Rajan, lounging against his pillows, steepled his fingers. "Pristine, I like that." Kim was sitting upright, his gaze fixed on her. "When we find no organic cause for neurological symptoms," Ashley continued, locking her eyes on Rajan's amused face, "we must consider psychosomatic origins, the mind manifesting distress in the body." "You think we're imagining it?" Kim's voice was a low rumble. "I think your symptoms are very real, but their source may not be physical." A slow smile spread across Rajan's face. He didn't look offended. He looked delighted. In one fluid motion, he swung his legs out of bed and stood. He was tall, imposing in his dark silk pajamas. He didn't look at her as he walked calmly to the suite door and turned the lock. The click was deafening. Ashley's spine went rigid. "What are you doing? Unlock that door." "In a moment, Doctor," Rajan said, his tone soothing yet final. He began to move to her left, a slow, predatory arc. "You've just told us our sickness is in our minds. This requires a more intimate consultation." From her right, she sensed movement. Kim had risen silently. He stood by the window, blocking that avenue of retreat. They were circling her, not threateningly, but with an unbearable intensity. "I want to leave. Now." Her voice held a command that usually made orderlies jump. "And miss the diagnosis?" Rajan purred, now behind her left shoulder. "You're sweating, Doctor. Your pulse is visible here." His gaze was a brand on the side of her throat. "Your skin is quite beautiful under stress, like polished mahogany." A flush of heat, completely separate from fear, crawled up her neck. From her right, Kim spoke, his eyes tracing the curls of her afro. "It's the hair, I think, the strength of it, the way it holds its shape, unapologetic. It must intimidate lesser people." "Gentlemen, this is highly inappropriate." "Your earrings," Rajan interrupted, now directly behind her. She could feel the whisper of his breath on her ear. "Simple gold hoops, but on you they're not simple, they're ancestral, they're regal." She was trapped between their voices, one at her back, one at her flank. The air grew thick, syrupy. She could smell Rajan's citrus clean scent from behind and Kim's sandalwood from the side. "Kim," Rajan said, his eyes never leaving Ashley's profile. "It's warm in here for our good doctor. Turn on the AC." Without a word, Kim moved to the wall unit, his movements economical. A quiet hum filled the room as cool air whispered out. The chill hit her damp skin, making her shiver. Psychosomatic, Rajan mused, beginning to pace a slow circle around her, forcing her to turn slightly to keep him in view, which brought Kim more into her line of sight. It was a dizzying, unnerving dance. So our pain is born of the psyche. Let's explore that. Maybe our sickness is a sickness of the heart, doctor. Perhaps you're the cure. From his post by the vent, Kim's voice cut through the artificial chill. Or the cause. Ashley's breath hitched. The verbal duel had begun, and she was the prize on the pedestal. Rajan stopped his packing, his face alight with intellectual fervor. Consider the evidence. Since our arrival, the focus of our shared malady has shifted. The headaches recede when she's in the room. The vertigo, it's not the world spinning, it's the desperate orbit around a new center of gravity. The sickness is longing. The cure is her attention, her brilliant, formidable mind. You mistake the symptom for the disease, brother, Kim countered, his voice pulling her gaze. He took a single step forward. The pain isn't a cry for her intellect, it's a reflection of it. We see the depth of her compassion, the way she stayed late for the old man in 412, the way her voice softens for the frightened child in oncology. That compassion creates a vacuum in a hollow man. The sickness is the sudden, painful awareness of one's own emptiness. She isn't the cure. She is the illuminated standard against which we see our own lack. Preposterous, Rajan laughed, a rich, warm sound that did not match the fever in his eyes. You'd reduce her to a nurse's heart? She is a strategist, a general of the synaptic battlefield. What we crave is the challenge of her, the thrill of engaging a wit that matches our own. To be seen by her as an equal, not a patient. And you would turn her into an opponent, Kim shot back, his stillness more aggressive than Rajan's movement. A conquest for your cleverness. You want her mind because you fear what her soul would demand of you, a surrender you are incapable of. Her soul, Rajan was closer now, his eyes searching Ashley's face, which she knew was a mask of stunned paralysis. Her soul is in the precision of her scalpel, the elegance of her diagnoses. You want to drown in some imagined spiritual pool. I want to soar with her in the clear, thin air of reason. You want a trophy for your shelf. I have seen the way she looks at the setting sun from this window, a 3-second pause, a quiet breath. That is not reason. That is a soul feeling its place in the universe. That is what I am sick for. Back and forth, their words flew, a tennis match of devastating perception. Each compliment was a weapon, each analysis a strip taken from her professional armor. Rajan praised the fortress of her intellect. Kim yearned for the vulnerable woman inside it. They weren't just fighting over her. They were arguing the essence of her being, and in doing so, they were revealing parts of her she'd compartmentalized for decades. She was no longer a doctor. She was a theorem to be proven, a sonnet to be deconstructed. Stop, she whispered, but the word was lost in the crossfire. They didn't touch her, but she felt handled. Mentally, emotionally, turned inside out. Her composure, her detachment, lay in tatters at her feet. She was just Ashley, naked under the glare of their twin, all-consuming focuses. With a surge of will that felt like tearing her own skin, she stumbled toward the door. Her fingers fumbled with the lock. Doctor, our consultation, Rajan began, his voice slick with false concern. She didn't look back. She ripped the door open and fled into the bright, sterile safety of the hallway. The door swung shut behind her, muffling their world. She leaned against the cool wall, her chest heaving. The scent of them was on her clothes and her hair. Their words echoed in her skull, cure, cause, mind, soul. She felt violently seen, psychologically flayed. They hadn't laid a hand on her, yet she felt branded. Pushing off the wall, she walked on unsteady legs, her white coat feeling like a child's costume. The nurses' glances seemed to hold new knowledge. She had entered that room a physician in control. She had left as a woman, brilliantly and terribly undone. Long day, doctor. Ashley froze, one hand on the door handle of the sleek black limousine idling at the hospital's private exit. Her shift had run late, her mind still buzzing with the psychological debris of her afternoon encounter. Her afro was tucked into a severe, elegant bun, and she'd swiped on a deep brown lipstick. her armor for the quiet evening alone she desperately craved. The driver, a man in a peaked cap, gave a short nod. "Complimentary car service for senior staff tonight, ma'am," a donor's gesture. Exhaustion trumped suspicion. With a grateful murmur, she slid into the plush, dark interior. The door shut with a whisper-soft thunk, plunging her into near darkness. Then, a familiar, smooth voice cut through the shadows. "Welcome to your evening, Dr. Nicole." A small, elegant lamp flicked on, illuminating Rajan Lee. He sat across from her, dressed not in hospital silk but in a charcoal suit that cost more than her car. His smile was a white slash in the dimness. Before she could react, she heard the distinct, final sound of central locks engaging. "What is this? Let me out." "Out, the night is young. I thought you deserved a proper thank you for your dedicated care." He leaned forward and tapped on the partition. "Peer the vault, please." "No, I'm not going to a club. Driver, stop the car." The partition remained closed. The car glided smoothly into the evening traffic. Rajan settled back, his gaze drinking her in. "The bun, it's a different kind of power. And that lipstick, it's the color of aged bourbon. It makes me want to learn the taste." "Rajan, this is kidnapping." "It's an invitation you were too professional to accept in my sick room, so I changed the venue." His demeanor shifted, the playful charm hardening into something stark and earnest. "Ashley, I have watched you for 2 weeks. You are the most complete, formidable, and intoxicating creature I have ever encountered. I am in love with you. It is a fact, and I will do anything for you, anything." The declaration hung in the perfumed air, grotesque in its grandiosity. It wasn't tender, it was a pronouncement. "You don't even know me. This is obsession, not love. Let me out now." "But I do know you," he insisted, his eyes blazing. He pressed a button. A panel slid down, revealing a small, perfect bento box. "You haven't eaten since lunch. You prefer savory over sweet. This is miso-glazed black cod with ginger rice from Matsuhisa, your favorite. You ordered it for delivery 3 times last month." She stared at the exquisite food, her stomach clenching with a mix of hunger and violation. "You're having me followed." "I'm having you understood." He opened another compartment. A tablet glowed. "See, a first-class ticket to Bali for a month, an all-expenses paid retreat at a private villa. You need rest. Real rest. Not just silence in your apartment. Son, see, someone to bring you fresh papaya for breakfast. I can give you that, just say yes." The sheer scale of the bribe was breathtaking. "I don't want your trip. I don't want your fish. I want to go home. I want to sleep." "Sleep." He acted as if she'd voiced a brilliant desire. He leaned over and pressed another button on the console beside her. With a soft, electric hum, her plush seat reclined, shifted, and unfolded into a fully flat, luxurious bed. A built-in speaker emitted a gentle, rhythmic sound. "Ocean waves or rainforest drizzle. This bed has 12 sleep programs. It monitors your vitals for optimal rest." She lay there, trapped in the absurd, mechanized comfort. It was a gilded cage on wheels. "This is insane." "You're tense. The stress in your trapezius muscles must be tremendous. Would you prefer a masseuse? I have one on call, discreet, the best in the city. Or," he pressed another button. The bed vibrated softly, then began a deep, rolling kneading motion along her spine. "The shiatsu function is exceptional." That was it. The violation was complete. She wasn't a person to him. She was a high-end project, a system to be debugged and optimized with money and technology. She shoved herself upright, the mechanical bed whirring in protest. "Stop the car, right now." "Ashley, please, I'm trying to care for you, in the only way I know how." "This isn't care, this is a performance. You're not in love with me. You're in love with the idea of conquering me. The brilliant, celibate doctor who won't be charmed. I am not a puzzle for you to solve, Rajan. I am a woman. And I am telling you to let me out of this obscene, rolling prison." Her voice was steel, her brown lipsticked mouth a firm line. The flirty tension was gone, burned away by her fury. For a long moment he just looked at her, his expression unreadable. The charming facade had finally cracked, revealing something colder, more calculating beneath. "You reject the food, the trip, the rest. What is it you want, then? What does Ashley Nicole truly desire that I cannot provide? My autonomy, she spat. My peace. My right to walk to my own car in my own time and go to my own home without being orchestrated by a spoiled man who thinks the world is a catalog he can order from. The insult landed. A flicker of genuine anger crossed his face. He stared at her, the standoff thick in the enclosed space. Then, with a sigh that seemed more theatrical than regret, he tapped the intercom. Pierre, pull over anywhere. The limousine slowed and glided to a smooth stop at a dimly lit curb in a commercial district. The locks disengaged with a loud clunk. Rajan didn't look at her. The offer remains, the ticket is open-ended, the villa is waiting. Ashley didn't utter another word. She shoved the heavy door open, stumbling out into the cool, unperfumed night air. The door shut behind her, and the limousine pulled away silently, disappearing into the flow of traffic as if it had never been. She stood on the sidewalk, her buns still tight, her lipstick perfect, her heart hammering against her ribs. The distance from the curb to the pavement had never felt so vast. He had offered her a world of tailored luxury, and she had chosen the cracked concrete. She felt dirty, electrified, and strangely, powerfully clean. She had yelled, and for the first time one of them had listened. But as she hailed a taxi, the ghost of the mechanized bed and the open ticket to Bali lingered in her mind. The temptation hadn't been the gifts, but the terrifying ease of it all, the surrender to being completely, obsessively managed. She had said no, but the game, she knew, was far from over. Dr. Nicole, stat to Suite A neurological event, patient Lee. The page was a bolt of lightning through her exhaustion. Ashley dropped the chart she was holding, her heart seizing. An event, after clear scans. It could be a sudden bleed, an aneurysm. Her mind, trained for crisis, switched tracks. She was running before she fully processed the fear. She burst into the suite, the door hitting the wall. What happened? Which one? Report symptoms. The room was lit only by the cold neon wash from the parking lot below. The monitors were dark, unplugged. Rajan was standing by his bed, the IV pole pushed aside, the needle dangling free from his wrist. Kim was already in the center of the room, a statue carved from shadow. The symptom, Rajan said, his voice not strained with illness but rich with intention, is a critical deficiency, a lack of proximity. Ashley froze, the adrenaline in her veins curdling into something colder, more dangerous. You're not sick. Oh, we are, Kim murmured, taking a silent step forward. The fluid, predatory grace of his movement was unmistakable. This was not a convalescent. This was a hunter. It's just not a sickness any scan can reveal. You fabricated a medical emergency. Her voice was low, disbelieving. We created a necessity, Rajan corrected, closing the distance from the other side. They were flanking her, the door now blocked by Kim's broad back. The hospital's rules, your professional boundaries, they're walls we needed to bypass. You left us no other way to have a conversation without the titled doctor in the room. There is nothing to discuss. Step aside. But there is, Rajan whispered. He was close now, so close she could see the midnight depths of his eyes. He didn't touch her. His hand came up, and his finger traced the cold, coiled tubing of her stethoscope where it lay against her chest. The touch was a live wire. We need to discuss the fact that you think of us when you're in your silent apartment. We need to discuss the way you bit your lip just now, not in fear, but in fury and something else. She jerked back, but collided with a wall of solid heat. Kim. He didn't steady her. He didn't move. He stood like a column behind her, the warmth of his body soaking through the back of her scrubs. He didn't touch, but his presence was an enclosure. Let me leave. The command trembled. In a moment, Rajan said, his gaze dropping to her mouth. First, the prognosis. My brother and I have reached a consensus. Our condition is chronic, and you are the only viable treatment. You are playing a dangerous game. It's the only game worth playing, Kim's voice rumbled from behind, his breath stirring the tiny hairs at her nape. It made her knees weak. You feel it, the pull. You've spent years in a quiet room. We are the storm at the window. You want to watch it. Rajan leaned in, his lips near her ear, his words for her alone. Come away with me, Ashley. Not in a limo, but on a plane. First to Monaco, then to a yacht in the Aegean. I'll show you a world where every desire is anticipated. You won't carry weight, you'll command it. Your mind, your beauty, they shouldn't be buried in this sterile tomb. They should be celebrated. The promise was a glittering, terrifying vortex. Before she could process it, Kim spoke, his voice a dark counterpoint from the shadows at her back. He will share you with the world, with the light, with 1,000 distractions. I would take you to a mountain house in Jeju, just the sound of the wind and the rain. I would learn the rhythm of your silence. I would study the weight of your sighs. His world is a mile wide and an inch deep. Mine would be a single, endless point. You, only you. Their words were a physical caress, a dual assault on her deepest, most neglected senses. Rajan's promise was a brilliant, sprawling landscape. Kim's was a deep, dark well. One offered everything, the other demanded everything. Rajan's finger left her stethoscope and brushed, just once, along the frantic pulse in her throat. Say you'll let me show you. Kim's head dipped lower, his voice the barest vibration against her spine. Say you'll let me know you. Ashley was molten and frozen, suspended between them. The celibate winter of her body was cracking, a seismic thaw under this twin sun's attention. Her breath came in short, sharp pants. The air was pure musk, sandalwood, citrus, male heat, and it was starving her of reason. This was the precipice. To lean back was to fall into Kim's consuming fire. To lean forward was to be swept up in Rajan's dazzling current. With a strangled sound that was part sob, part war cry, she summoned a last vestige of will. She shoved forward, not at Rajan, but sideways, breaking the triangle. She stumbled toward the door, her hand fumbling for the handle. Ashley, Rajan's voice held a note of genuine surprise. She didn't look back. She wrenched the door open and fled into the blinding, empty fluorescence of the hallway. She ran, not walked, her soft-soled shoes squeaking on the linoleum. She didn't stop until she was in the stairwell, the heavy fire door slamming shut behind her. She collapsed against the cold concrete wall, gasping. Her skin burned where Rajan had traced it. Her back tingled where Kim's heat had branded her. The scent of them was in her nostrils, in her hair. She had fled, but the truth echoed in the hollow of her chest. She had wanted. For a terrifying, glorious moment, she had wanted to choose. The memory of their promises of glittering seas and silent mountains was not a threat. It was a haunting, siren song. The fortress walls still stood, but she had felt them shake to their foundation, and a part of her, long dormant, had thrilled at the quake. Dr. Ashley was in her office today, wondering what she would do about the obsessed Korean twins. You have to report them. Ashley stared at her reflection in the dark glass of her office window. The sunrise painted the sky in weak watercolors, doing nothing to warm the chill in her bones. Report them for what? She whispered to the tired woman in the glass. For locking a door, for speaking, for looking at you in a way that made you feel alive. The board will ask if they touched you. And what will you say? That one traced a piece of medical equipment, that the other one stood too close. She turned away, packing the short length of the room. The silence was a mockery. It used to be her solace. Now it was just empty, echoing with the promises of a storm. They fabricated a medical emergency. That is a fireable offense, for them. But for you, you walked into that dark room, you stayed. However briefly, you listened. She sank into her chair, pressing the heels of her hands against her eyes. Their patients. You are the head of the department. This is the definition of an ethical breach. If anyone found out, if a nurse saw, if a resident heard a rumor, your career is over. 27 years, gone. The solution presented itself, cold and clean. Quit. Submit your resignation, effective immediately. Cite personal reasons. Go somewhere else, another city, another state. But the thought brought no relief, only a profound, weary defeat. She loved this hospital. This was her kingdom, hard won. To flee felt like letting them win, like proving she was as off balance as they claimed. And what are they? 32? You are 47, 47. You could be not their mother, but certainly an older sister. A much older sister. This isn't a romance. It's a midlife crisis waiting to happen. They don't want you. They want the idea of the unattainable. The moment you sigh and fall into one of their arms, the game ends. You know this. She stood up, her decision a blade. She would not run. She would not cower. She would end it. She would walk into that suite in the full light of day and deliver an ultimatum so professional, so icy, it would freeze this nonsense in its tracks. She was Dr. Nicole, and she was reclaiming her narrative. The walk to the private wing felt longer than ever. She held her tablet like a shield, her face set in neutral, professional lines. She would not knock. She was their doctor. She entered. And the world shattered. The air in the suite was not charged with desire, but with violence. It was thick, acrid. They were in the center of the room, facing each other, bodies coiled. Spittle flew in rapid, guttural Korean. She didn't need a translator. The hatred was a universal language. Rajan's face was twisted, a snarl stripping away all his charm. "Who do you think you are to say that?" Kim's response was a low, venomous stream, his hands clenched into white-knuckled fists at his sides. "It was mine. It was never yours." They were circling, a bare foot apart. This was no game. This was a breaking point. Enough. Her voice, sharp as a gunshot, ripped through the room. They both froze, turning identical looks of feral shock toward her. The silence that followed was more deafening than the yelling. "What in God's name is going on in here?" Her voice trembled with a fury that was purely professional, a doctor's fury at a disruption in her ward. Rajan recovered first, a mask of smooth contempt sliding over his rage. "A private discussion, doctor. Nothing for you to concern yourself with." "It became my concern when I walked into what looks like a fight club in a patient's suite." She took a step forward, into the dangerous space between them. "You are in a hospital. This behavior is unacceptable." Kim's eyes, black and burning, locked onto her. "He thinks he can buy what isn't for sale. He always has." Rajan laughed, a harsh, ugly sound. "And you think your brooding silence is a virtue. It's a pathology. You want to possess her, to lock her away like one of your precious, dusty artifacts. You'd smother her light just to call it your own. You would dilute it, share it with every vapid socialite from here to Monaco until it means nothing. At least I would show her the world. Your world is a gilded cage." They were shouting in English now. For her benefit, each venomous word a missile aimed through her to hit the other. "You are a child playing with a fortune you didn't earn. And you are a ghost trying to steal warmth from the living." She could feel the heat of their anger, the vibration of it in the floor. This was about business, pride, history, but it was crystallizing around her. She was the prize over which the once unbreakable bond was splintering. "Stop it," she yelled again, and this time she moved. She stepped directly into the narrowing space between them, her back to Kim, facing Rajan. "This ends now. I am not a toy for you to fight over. Do you understand me? I am a person, a professional. You are tearing each other apart and dragging me into the rubble." Rajan's eyes dropped to hers, the anger cooling into something more dangerous, more possessive. "You see what he is, Ashley. This intensity. It's not love, it's sickness." From behind her, Kim's breath was hot on her neck. "And his charm is a currency he spends on everyone. You would be just another transaction." She was pressed between the fronts of a war, their bodies radiating conflicting energies, Rajan's furious heat, Kim's icy burn. The realization crashed over her with the weight of truth. This wasn't flirting anymore. This was the fault line, and she was standing directly on top of it. "Get out," she said, her voice suddenly quiet, deadly calm. "Both of you, get out of this hospital. Your tests are clear. You are discharged. Whatever this is," she gestured between the two of them, "you will not have it here, not around me." When the twins refused to budge, Ashley began to threaten again, and suddenly, there was a knock on the door. The suite door crashed open with a sound like splintering ice. "What in the name of sanity is going on in here? I could hear you on the floor below." Mrs. Beatrice Cromwell, director of hospital operations, stood in the doorway like an avenging angel in a Chanel suit. Her sharp eyes cut from Rajan's furious stance to Kim's coiled silence, finally landing on Ashley, pale and frozen between them. "Well," Beatrice's voice was a lash. Rajan was the first to move, his body uncoiling into an effortless, apologetic slouch. "Mrs. Cromwell, our most profound apologies. A family matter, a debate over our late mother's estate. It got heated. The stress of our condition, you understand." "Your condition appears to have left you with the energy of prize fighters," Beatrice snapped, not buying it for a second. She turned her glare on Ashley. "Dr. Nicole, explain this spectacle." Ashley's tongue felt thick. "I was conducting a final pre-discharge assessment. A disagreement arose between the patients regarding their ongoing care philosophy." "Philosophy." Beatrice let the word hang, dripping with skepticism. She looked at Kim. "And you, do you have a philosophy to share?" Kim's gaze never left Ashley. "My philosophy is simple. Some things are not meant to be shared." Beatrice's lips pressed into a thin line. She assessed the room, the tension so thick it distorted the air, the way the two men orbited Ashley even now. "I see. Well, here is my philosophy. This is a place of healing, not a theater for melodrama. Your charts are clean. Your mysterious ailment has, I presume, vanished. You are discharged, effective immediately. I will have security assist you with your belongings." "That won't be necessary," Rajan said, his smile tight. "I insist," Beatrice countered, her tone leaving no room for argument. "For the safety and dignity of my staff." She speared Ashley with a final look. "Dr. Nicole, my office, 10 minutes." The moment the door shut behind Beatrice, the silence in the suite turned glacial. Two uniformed security guards entered, efficient and silent, collecting a pair of expensive, understated duffels. The brothers watched, their earlier rage now a cold, focused energy directed solely at the woman in the center of the room. When the guards left, the door clicked shut. The sound was a full stop. Rajan let out a long breath. "So, the curtain falls on our medical drama." Kim didn't speak. He simply turned, his dark eyes pinning Ashley where she stood. "Which leaves us," Rajan continued, moving to lean casually against the door, his body a graceful barricade, "with the only question that ever mattered." He looked at her, all pretense gone. "Choose." The word hung in the sterile air. "What?" Ashley breathed. "Him," Kim said, his voice gravel. "Or me." "The time for games is over, Ashley," Rajan said, pushing off the door and taking a step toward her. "The limo, the villa, the world, it's a package deal. But the package includes me. Choose adventure. Choose a life where every day is a masterpiece we paint together. Choose me." As he spoke, Kim moved from the window, crossing the room to stand near the bed, cutting off her path to the call button, to any semblance of escape. "Or choose substance. Choose a silence that isn't empty. Choose a man who doesn't want to parade you for the world, but to know you so completely the world falls away. Choose me." They were boxing her in, not with threats, but with the sheer, overwhelming pressure of their will. "You're blocking me," she said, her voice trembling. "We're presenting options," Rajan corrected, his gaze intense. "No more hospital walls, no more professional excuses, just you, and a decision." "The only one that matters," Kim echoed. Ashley looked from one face to the other. Rajan's was alight with passionate possibility. Kim's was etched with a desperate, profound certainty. Both were devastating, both were cages. For weeks she had been pulled between them, a prize in their silent war. She had felt desired, seen, coveted. But in this moment, under the harsh, post-fight lights, she saw the truth. She wasn't a person to them in this. She was the ultimate trophy, the final proof of supremacy in a lifelong rivalry. A calm, cold clarity washed over her, dousing the last of her confusion. "No," she said. The word was quiet, but it stopped them both. "What?" Rajan asked, a flicker of disbelief in his eyes. "I choose neither of you." She straightened her spine, the white coat feeling like armor for the first time in days. "I am not a treasure to be fought over. I am not a trophy to be won in your battle with each other, and I am certainly not your mate to be claimed." She took a step forward, and this time, Rajan instinctively moved aside from the door. Her authority was finally her own again, radiating from a core they could not touch. "You have spent this entire time trying to trap me between you," she said, looking at each of them. But all you've done is show me the space between you is a chasm, and I will not be the bridge you burn. I will not be the cause of your destruction." She reached for the door handle. "Ashley," Rajan's voice held a raw edge she'd never heard. She paused, her hand on the cool metal. She didn't look back. "I am Dr. Ashley Nicole. I spent a lifetime building a peace you two cannot even comprehend. I choose that. I choose myself." She opened the door and walked out. She didn't run. She walked with a steady, deliberate pace down the hall, away from the wreckage. Behind her, in the silent suite, the brothers were left with only each other and the echoing finality of her words. The shared purpose that had bound them, even in rivalry, the pursuit of her, was gone. All that remained was the hollow victory of an empty room and the searing, irrevocable knowledge that they had together lost. Kim turned his head slowly to look at his brother. The love that had twisted into obsession had now curdled into something pure and clean: hatred. "This," Kim said, the word dropping like a stone, "is your fault." Rajan's answering smile was bitter and cold. "No, brother, this is ours." The war was no longer for her. It was because of her, and it had only just begun. Weeks after being discharged from the hospital, the twins had become sworn enemies. Today, the twins had to put their anger aside and go support their mother, who was celebrating her birthday. "Move this, chromed embarrassment. It's leaking exhaust and poor taste onto the curb." A voice mocked Rajan's car while he was parked in front of his mother's gate. The voice belonged to Kim, but stripped of all quiet intensity, sharpened into a public blade. On the screen, standing on a sun-drenched New York street, he looked like a stranger in a tailored black coat. Rajan emerged from the back of a silver Rolls-Royce, his smile a cold, thin line. "Ah, the phantom speaks. I wondered if you'd slink into town or send a gloomy memo. Still using the company driver, I see. Some things never change." "Some things do. Your relevance, for instance. You look tired, Rajan. Is playing the charming parasite finally wearing you down?" "Better a parasite with a pulse than a statue in a cemetery. Mother asked for me. She didn't mention you." The camera zoomed, capturing the raw hatred twisting their handsome features. This wasn't a sibling spat, it was a duel. "She doesn't need to ask for me. I am present. You are a performance she endures. And you are the shadow she pities. Your presence is a stain on the room. You think your silence is strength. It's just emptiness you can't fill. My emptiness is my own. Yours is a void you try to fill with trinkets and women you can't keep. How is the good doctor, by the way? Did she finally prescribe you something for your delusions?" Rajan's composure cracked. He took a step forward. "Do not speak her name. You ruined that, with your gothic yearning. You frightened her with the depth of your neediness." "I offered her truth. You offered her a brochure. She saw you for the hollow brand you are." "She saw a future. She saw a man who could give her the world. She saw a mirror reflecting nothing back, and she walked away, from both of us, because of you." Their voices were rising, drawing neighbors to windows. A sleek town car pulled up, and an elderly Korean woman, regal and frail, was helped out by a driver. Their mother, Mi-sun Lee. Her face was a mask of anguish. "My sons, stop this. The street is watching." "Stay out of this, mother," Kim snarled, not looking away from Rajan. "Yes, mother," Rajan sneered. "This is between the failure and the fraud. You are both my heart. You are tearing it out." "He started this," they shouted in unison, then glared at each other with renewed venom. "You are a cancer in this family. And you are the corpse that won't decay. You stole my birthright. You are a ghost trying to steal a life." The insults were no longer about Ashley, but she was the poison in every syllable. She was the fault line that had split them open, revealing a rot that went deeper than her. Mi-sun Lee pressed a hand to her chest, her breath coming in short gasps. "Please, I beg you." The driver moved to support her. "Young Masters, your mother." "Silence," Rajan roared, his eyes wild. He reached inside his coat. The gasp from the news anchor in the studio was audible. "Viewers, we must warn you." But it was too late. Rajan pulled a sleek black pistol, not pointing it at Kim, but holding it at his side, a symbol of ultimate escalation. You want to settle this? You want to end it? Here, now. Kim didn't flinch. A cruel smile touched his lips. You wouldn't. You've never gotten your hands dirty. You pay, you charm, you don't pull the trigger. For you, brother, I'll make an exception. For her, you mean. This is still for her, even now. Their mother gave a soft, broken cry. Her eyes rolled back, and she collapsed into the driver's arms. The scene erupted into chaos. Kim lunged not at the gun, but at Rajan, a feral cry tearing from his throat. The camera jostled, the image shaking as the two men, once mirrors, now shattered, grappled on the manicured sidewalk, the gun skittering across the concrete. The screen froze, then cut back to the stunned anchor. We are breaking away from that disturbing live footage. We have confirmation an ambulance has been called. The status of Mi-sun Lee and the ongoing altercation between her sons is unknown. We will update. Ashley sat in the dark of her living room, the remote control limp in her hand. The glow of the television painted her face in shifting blues. Her breath wouldn't come. It was stuck somewhere behind her ribs, a hard, painful knot. She had said no. She had walked away to choose herself to stop the war, and instead she had unleashed it. She had seen the hatred in that hospital room, but this was a conflagration. They were burning their legacy, their dignity, their mother's health, on the street for the world to see. Because of you. Kim's televised snarl echoed in the silent room. Because of you. The professional part of her brain, the doctor, coldly diagnosed shock. Elevated heart rate, shallow respiration, a feeling of detachment. The woman, the Ashley they had fought over, felt something else entirely, a devastating, soul-crushing guilt. She had known they were dangerous. She had sensed the violence beneath the silk, but she had never imagined this. She had never dreamed her refusal would be the spark that lit the fuse to their dynasty. The news cut to a shot of the ambulance, lights flashing silently, a stretcher being loaded. A single, hot tear traced a path down her cheek, then another. It wasn't love for them. It was grief for what she had unwittingly unleashed. It was heartbreak for the mother she had never met, who had fainted on the pavement watching her world end. It was the terrifying, absolute understanding that her peace had come at a catastrophic price. The fortress walls stood. But outside, the world she had left was burning, and the smoke was choking her. The concrete echoed with her own hurried footsteps. Ashley fumbled in her bag for her keys, the vast, dim emptiness of the hospital parking garage pressing in on her. She was jumpy, had been for days, ever since the news footage. A shadow detached itself from a pillar ahead, then another from behind a van. Not shadows. Men. They moved with a purpose that had nothing to do with parking. Dr. Nicole, the voice was flat accented, you will come with us, quietly. Her blood turned to ice. Who are you? What do you want? The Lee brothers, they took something from us. Now we take something from them. The man in front smiled, a cruel slash. You. He lunged. Ashley stumbled back, a scream trapped in her throat. But the scream that rent the air wasn't hers. It was a roar of pure rage. From behind a concrete column, a figure moved like a released spring. Kim, his fist connected with the first man's jaw with a sickening crack. The man crumpled. Touch her, and I will peel the skin from your bones. From the opposite direction, near the stairwell, a shape resolved itself. Rajan. He didn't roar. He was silent, a specter of focused violence. He kicked the legs out from the second man, who was pulling a blade. You look at her, Rajan said, his voice lethally calm as he stomped on the man's wrist. You've already signed your death warrant. More figures emerged from the gloom, 4, 5. The rival faction had come prepared. Kim, you're left, Rajan barked, tossing a heavy maglite he'd snatched from a maintenance cart. Kim caught it without looking, swinging it in a savage arc to block a crowbar aimed at his skull. The clang echoed. Rajan behind the sedan, gun. Rajan dove, not away, but toward the threat, a blur of motion. A shot rang out, deafening in the enclosed space. Ashley flinched, a cry finally escaping her. She saw it then, the terrifying synchronization. They were no longer fighting each other. They were two halves of a single, devastating engine. Kim would create an opening with brutal, direct force. Rajan would exploit it with fluid, disarming precision. A nod, a glance, a grunt. It was a language of violence they had spoken since birth. "You bleed, brother," Kim grunted, slamming a man's head into a car hood after Rajan had deftly twisted the weapon from his grip. "A scratch. Watch the one with the chain." It was a brutal ballet. No elegant moves, only efficient, bone-breaking truth. This was their real nature, stripped of all silk and charm. They were predators, and tonight she was their shared territory. One of the attackers, bigger, meaner, broke through. He shoved Kim back against a pillar and turned toward Ashley, a knife gleaming. Rajan was 10 feet away, grappling with two others. "Ashley." Kim, dazed, pushed off the pillar, but he was too far. The man raised the knife. A gunshot exploded. The attacker froze, a look of surprise on his face, then collapsed. Behind him, Rajan stood, a small, smoking pistol in his hand, his expression grim. The two men he'd been fighting were already down. Silence, heavy and ringing, descended. The only sounds were ragged breathing and the drip of fluids, oil or blood. Kim stumbled to his feet, clutching his ribs. Rajan's left arm hung at an odd angle, blood soaking through his jacket sleeve. They stood amid the wreckage of men, chests heaving, and their eyes, wild, animalistic, found hers. Not each other. Hers. "Are you hurt?" Rajan demanded, his voice rough. "Did they touch you?" Kim rasped at the same time. She could only shake her head, mute with shock. They were battered, broken, bleeding, and their first words were for her. Kim limped toward her, his intense gaze scanning her for injury. Rajan holstered the gun inside his jacket, wincing as he moved his injured arm. You need an ambulance," Ashley whispered, her doctor's instinct kicking in through the terror. "Later," Kim said. "They found you because of us," Rajan said, his face pale with pain and something like shame. "Our war, it spilled onto you. That is unforgivable." Kim looked at his brother, then back at the carnage. The hatred from New York was gone, burned away in the frantic, protective fire of the fight. "We are a sickness in each other's lives, but you—" He looked at Ashley, his gaze stripped raw. "You are the only thing we have ever agreed on, the only common ground." Rajan gave a pained, bitter laugh. "Our only weakness, and our only—" He searched for the word, his polished vocabulary failing him. "Hope." The confession hung in the gasoline-scented air. It wasn't a romantic declaration. It was a surrender to a painful truth. They were ruinous together, but they had nearly lost the one point of light that had ever shone between them. Ashley, her hands trembling, pulled out her phone. She didn't call the police. She called the hospital emergency line. "Code Silver, parking level B3, multiple trauma, prepare 2 beds, stat." She knelt, ignoring the groans of the fallen attackers, her eyes on the Lee brothers. "Sit, before you fall down." They obeyed, like weary soldiers, sinking to the concrete against her car. Kim watched her as she tore a strip from her own lab coat, moving to apply pressure to Rajan's bleeding arm. "You should run from us," Kim murmured, his voice thick. "We are darkness." "You are also patience," she said, her voice surprisingly steady. The sirens wailed in the distance, growing closer. "And tonight you are mine." In the flashing red and blue lights that soon filled the garage, reflected in the pools of oil and blood, the three of them sat, the doctor between the wounded wolves. The war wasn't over, but a fragile, blood-soaked truce had been forged. Not in love, but in the stark, undeniable understanding that she was, and always would be, the reason for both their ruin and their redemption. The next day, Kim Lee and Rajan Lee were discharged against medical advice, but they came to her office. Both of them. Rajan's arm in a sling, Kim's ribs taped, their faces a map of fatting bruises and fresh resolve. They stood before her desk, not as patients, not as suitors, but as petitioners. Ashley did not offer them a seat. "The garage changes nothing," she said, her voice clear in the sunlit room. "It only makes the stakes clearer." Rajan opened his mouth, but she held up a hand. "You will listen, For once, you will both be silent and listen." She stood, circling to the front of her desk, leaning against it. She was in a simple navy dress, her afro a radiant crown. She was no captive prize. She was a sovereign issuing terms. "I will not be fought over, that ends now. I will not choose one of you over the other, that fantasy is dead." Kim's jaw tightened. "Then there is nothing." "There is everything," she countered. "But it exists only under my conditions. You say I am your only common ground? Then you will build upon it. You will repair what you shattered. Not for me, but because without it, you are just two broken, violent men who will eventually destroy each other and anyone near you." Rajan let out a short breath. "You want us to be brothers again, after everything." "I want you to be human again. You showed me a glimmer of it in the garage. That synchronization wasn't just for fighting. It was a memory of what you were before the poison set in." She looked from one to the other. "If you want even the possibility of a place in my life, you will prove you can love something, each other, me, yourselves, without turning it into a battlefield." "That is an impossible ask," Kim said, his voice low. "I know. You are setting us up to fail. I am setting you free to succeed, on the only terms that matter. Mine." She crossed her arms. "No more gifts, no more clandestine limousines or whispered poetry in the dark, no more manipulating my staff or fabricating crises. You will leave this hospital and you will not contact me." Rajan's face fell. "Ashley." "You will go," she continued, unwavering, "and you will look at the wreckage you've made of your family, your business, your own souls, and you will fix it. You will find a way to stand in the same room without hatred. You will prove that the bond I saw in the garage is stronger than the rivalry that turned a New York street into a war zone." "And if we do," Rajan asked, a challenge in his eyes, "what then do we win you?" "You do not win me. If and only if you can show me, over time, with consistent, quiet action, that you have rebuilt something true between you, then, and only then, will I consider allowing you to know me. Not to possess me, to know me. And I will know you. The real you, not the rivals performing for a prize." Kim studied her, his dark eyes seeing the immovable truth in hers. "You offer a path of endless work, with no guarantee at the end. I offer the only path that doesn't lead to hell, for all three of us." She pushed off the desk, a clear signal of dismissal. "The game you started is over. It was childish, and it almost got people killed. What begins now, if you are brave enough, is the real work. It will be the hardest thing you have ever done." She walked to the door and opened it. The hallway beyond was bright, orderly, sane. "The choice is no longer between the two of you. It never was. The choice is now entirely yours. Become better men together or become ghosts. But you will do it away from me." They were silent for a long moment, absorbing the sheer scale of her demand. It was a mountain, an impossibility. Rajan looked at his brother, a weary, complicated history passing between them in a glance. Then he looked back at Ashley, and for the first time his charm was completely absent. What remained was a stark, naked determination. "An impossibility," he echoed softly, "but you are the only one worth attempting it for." Kim gave a single, slow nod, not to her but to Rajan, an acknowledgement of the truce of the task. He turned his head back to Ashley. "We will not contact you, but we will not disappear." "See that you don't," she said, her heart a drum in her chest. "The world has enough ghosts." They walked out, side by side, not touching, but the space between them was no longer charged with malice. It was filled with the daunting quiet of a shared purpose. Ashley closed the door and leaned against it, finally allowing herself to breathe. There was no neat resolution, no chosen suitor. There was only a searing, new dynamic, more dangerous and more real than anything that had come before. Two formidable brothers, eternal rivals, now bound by a fragile, tentative alliance. Not for empire, not for money, but for the approval of the one woman who had seen their darkness and demanded their light. They stood on the precipice of an impossible reconstruction. The game was indeed over. The real work, painful, slow, and humming with a heat far deeper than flirtation, had just begun. And for the first time, Ashley Nicole, alone in her quiet office, allowed herself a small, tentative smile. The future was terrifying, and it was hers to shape.